don't we have a park downtown? Why can't we have a education center where children can go to? One of the things that was brought to my attention 6 years ago, maybe more, was using the Phoenix Center as an education center. How great would that be to have it right there, where our children can have a place to go? We need to invest in a state of the art library. We need to invest in schools. Parks, recreational activities for our young people. We need to invest in our small businesses. Right now, downtown Pontiac, there's an opportunity to bring a lot of support in businesses where our young people could look at the downtown and possibly the Phoenix Center as an education unit, an EDU, with everything the young people need. We need to invest in our young people, okay? We just need to invest in our young people.
And that's what we're talking about right here. If we take the needs and wants of these young people and thwart them or bury them, then we will not grow Michigan. They will leave. They will go to where they can grow.
And Brenda, there's something very interesting that you just put your finger on, and that is teach to passion. We don't do that. That's a naturally occurring thing that unfortunately is lost by the time they're in third grade. And we're teaching to a test of generic answers to questions that are meaningless and tied to no frameworks. And who remembers that stuff? There's nobody, okay? So,
but by the time those third graders graduate from high school, the entire scope of the world will have changed. So we're teaching them something that will be useless in the time that they need it the most.
Can't say any better than that.
And we're so on the same page. So how, given that, can we use this festival, this United Nations opportunity to deliver that message? And what we're suggesting to leadership is we're going to do a design charrette for a whole year, because there's so many things in the region that, in education being one of them, and probably in our opinion the most important, but there's economic development, there's the things that are going on in Detroit, there's the thing that's going on in Pontiac.
I totally agree, Jim. As you were going over this pictorial here, it reminded me of my first year in the legislature, and the only person that could really comment on this in this call is Jonathan. But I used to have this huge wall of sticky notes.
We've seen pictures of those. Yes. We've seen that. I love it.
The creativity, once again, just to be able to say, even with our seniors, there's still a room to be creative, and when we thwart that opportunity, we actually diminish growth in all areas. You mentioned two key areas of what you're focusing on, which happens to be the two key areas that I'm focusing on, which is education, but is second only to economic development and financial literacy. Get people from where they are to where they could be productive. So am I running out of time? These two people, Jonathan and Damiana, I could talk to forever. If you notice, Monica, go back to the display you had a minute ago where you were putting sticky notes up.
Okay.
I just want to show Jonathan and Damiana just one thing I noticed to let you know about these two individuals. See that picture up in the upper left-hand corner? It's over there. We're surrounded by, once again, sticky notes. Okay.
That's right.
Where we were, what year was that when we took that picture, Monica?
2014.
2014.
And the woman that's on the right, on the left of Jim is Superintendent Kelly Williams.
Right. We had the makings, and look what it turned into.
Yeah, look what you delivered.
Look what you delivered. You brought $50 million to the party.
Now we just have to fight the fight on the local level to make sure it's inclusive. But we got this.
we're getting there because without the help of the local level, we wouldn't have been able to get what we are. And the ramifications of bringing that $50 million to downtown Pontiac will matriculate throughout the whole entire community, whether it's embellishing the starving businesses on Saginaw Street or going right out into the community where that opportunity to have jobs, the opportunity to have training or whatever will begin to grow Pontiac. And it's a model that can be utilized across the state. So yeah, we were, and I'm not gonna take total credit for that because with the help of Senator Jeremy Moss, we were able to bring that type of innovation to downtown Pontiac, and hopefully the best is yet to come. But I am very interested in, before we run out of time, Damiana, can you tell me what my schedule looks like on the 21st of April?
But another interesting thing that happened during the pandemic was a lot of tactical urbanism where people really, we just very quickly reworked our streets, that in a lot of communities, they reduced the number of lanes available to car traffic and either added bike lanes or were expanding sidewalks so that then retailers and restaurants could do outdoor seating and outdoor shopping. And so you just saw this kind of shifting of space away from cars to people and pedestrians and bikes. And I think inadvertently, it really showed us what's possible and how to think big and how to think visionary. And it was this great way to kind of test some of these prototype, essentially, like a design thinking process, prototype and refine these interventions. And so I think in the next, the coming years, I think the transportation landscape could be totally shaken up. It'll be really interesting to see what happens.
It's funny, Lindsay, I was just like last week in a conversation about the Phoenix Center, and I said, why don't we just close Saginaw Street completely, turn the whole thing into a walking street, and the whole, and then the Phoenix Center can actually shine, right? It'd be the thing that it could be. Yeah, wouldn't that be beautiful?
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it's so much smarter than trying to fix, they're talking about fixing the drive-through underneath and all that. It's like, no. Make one big loop on the outside. And the question of what to do with the parking lot is let people park their cars there so they can get out and walk, right? I mean, you need a place to park, and then get out of your car because everything else is walking.
Right.
Yes.
It would be beautiful. It would be a beautiful thing. I know. I actually, because the unrolling of the loop project is, keeps coming. I've been dragged into some of those conversations, and
It's bad.
and I know it is. And that was my answer. Actually, why don't we? It's been a while since that conversation started. Why don't we look at it differently now?
Yeah.
It's been at least 10 years. So let's think about another solution. We don't have to do the thing now that we know we have some money. Why don't we do something, at least think about something different, but we seem to be stuck. So
Something smart versus just doing something to do something.
exactly. I mean, there's that, it was my idea 8 years ago, therefore we should keep going on it,
The false premise was people couldn't find Pontiac. I always found that somewhat suspect, okay?
No, the problem is there's not enough interesting reasons to come to downtown.
Yeah.
So make it fun and interesting to come downtown,
They always do everything backwards. They always want to do the physical, like redo the loop rather than just doing what you have said. And when they wanted to demolish the Phoenix Center, it was so that cars could come streaming through our little 6-block walkable downtown that could be a super block if we're thinking about Barcelona and what places like that are doing. I'm not sure if Ryan's on right now, but that's they're doing a lot around looking at Barcelona super blocks, and we have the perfect infrastructure as is, but we have to do community engagement. We have to bring our community to our downtown and make a reason for them to come.
I'm so excited that Grizz Night is happening, and thank you guys for having the idea for the scavenger hunt. The great part about the building that we're in right now is this is a place where, as a grown man, I can come and dream. You need to come on over to the incubator because they're trying to foster ideas, and for a long time in the city of Pontiac, we have failed to plan, and any road has taken us where we are. And so he has a whole building that's dedicated to just thinking about what we can do in the future. And so please, please, please take advantage of going over and sitting down and seeing Jim so you can flush out not only the ideas that you have for yourself, but the ideas for the city. Think about it. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be voting on the future of what happens to Pontiac schools. And so they say it's for capital improvement, right? But we don't necessarily have a capital improvement plan yet. And so we need to foster the things to say, okay, great, we might pass this millage and pay for the capital improvement, but what's the plan to generate a new technology school that we actually have that's going to be state of the art? This is one idea that we need to be focused on, because if we don't focus on it, we'll be saying that 30 years from now, we're still using Pontiac High School in the condition that it's in. You see my picture in your little brochure? Yeah! Guess what? I want your picture to be in the brochure. You see the Phoenix Center down there? Yeah! We don't have any idea what to do with it. We've spent millions of dollars building it, and guess what? It's wide open and empty, so we need your help. What should be on the Phoenix Center? Raise your hand. Basketball court. Okay, over here in the back. Right here, you with the glasses. Football field. Young lady. Young lady. Play skate. What? Soccer field. 50 hot tubs. 2 pools. Water feature. A water park. Yeah. Okay, go. A circus. Now guess what? Who's gonna make that happen? You guys are gonna make that happen. You know why? Because you guys will be the future council people. When I used to sit where you sat, I had a full head of hair.
Your picture's in it, yeah. Take a video of it. I got it. That's Kermit.
Anybody know what a city council person does? We make all the decisions on everything from curfew, what time you guys got to be in the house, to what happens to that big old parking structure called the Phoenix Center. So we need you guys to take our spot. Who wants to be a council person? Who wants to be a mayor? Who wants to be a governor? Who wants to give us millions of dollars so we can have a pool in the hot tub on top of the Phoenix Center? Okay. So we're gonna do this. Everybody quiet down. Real quiet. I want you to say something after me. I am the future of Pontiac. Nothing happens without my say so. So when I get older, I am gonna make the city that will change the world.
She was bringing the students downtown, and we've done pilot programs, but this was a very informal that just kind of blossomed from us meeting and saying, hey, let's go tour the city. Ethan, tell us what we did over the summer and what your thoughts are.
So what we did was we wrote a notes that what we wanted to do to help the city and what we wanted to add into it. And we put it on these boards, and then one of them said future, past, and present. So, and we came up with ideas to make everything useful, not just say, I don't want it and just throw it away. We made something new in life, and we helped it.
Wow. Thank you for that. And Michelle, what were your takeaways?
We met by accident. It was pure accident, just going for a random walk. And these kids were allowed, they came up with so many great ideas on what they would like to see in the city. And I really believe and agree with Jim and Monica that getting the young people into the city brings families into the city, and it's going to create a future for the city. And there's so many possibilities and so many things that can happen if people work together. And I love the idea that people like Ethan and some of the other great kids we had this summer can be part of that.
Wonderful.
Community here in Pontiac, and when you talked about the number 4, you know, it offers a lot of very wonderful possibilities. Placemaking is, you know, it offers a lot of very wonderful possibilities. I've been looking at it for our community here in Pontiac, and when you talked about the number 4, governance, that kind of struck a chord with me, because from our perspective, that's been our biggest hindrance, is governance. It's when you have governance that don't see the vision, you've got to, you know, it's really, really difficult.
There's people who have nothing, and this is why I love hip hop, because in my opinion, hip hop is about making something out of nothing. People have to learn how to adapt to their situation. You know what I mean? Whether it's learning how to preserve, whether it's learning how to trade, barter, whether it's learning how to grow something in your, you know, some people in Cairo, they got a patch of grass this big, and there's something growing there. You know what I mean? Where that, you know, I think it's good to look at, you know, of course, we're supposed to be able to rely on our governments and these big agencies and these corporations and these people, these scientists and these doctors and all of these people. But there's indigenous people, there's children, there's creative people who don't have degrees, they don't have the background or whatever, but they do have solutions, practical solutions that necessity forced them to come up with.
If one thing can go viral out of Wuhan, why not another? And this declaration, which is posted here on the board, the 7 points, were our point of beginning to say, could we co-create a placemaking declaration for our South Florida community? But more so, could we do that in a ground-up fashion? What I told you in the beginning was that the Chinese government hired Project for Public Spaces to write a declaration for them, and then they declared it. And we think it's a wonderful model, but we also think that we can use the gift of governance to examine that and come up with something that's context sensitive to our community.
Yeah, the question is,
I've been waiting for the question.
Okay, the question is this. I think it sounds, how are you going to communicate the message of all this information in so many different environments? It's too much for people to be jumping, for my parents to be jumping from Instagram to Facebook and have 6 telephones and have to put on makeup. Fine for young people. But like, I think there's a certain amount of people who are just going to get on and collaborate. How, and I say this in regards to, I'm trying to understand exactly how placemaking is. I'm a bit of an outsider here. So I think as an advantage in this case, when I see 9 points and like the declarations and stuff, this is I totally understand it intellectually and I love it and I'm totally support it, but it just feels like a democratic convention, like a platform that is not like it was written on PowerPoint. And we're all bad business people, and you all know what you want to do with the building. The people, we need to somehow merge the brain of like the creative side and the people who know, like Scott, who is like straddles that world, so he's like can help us like bridge us. We need all. I think probably everybody in this meeting needs to be some kind of bridge, but I don't know what message to take back to my community because they're hostile to it.
Well,
Michael, have you seen the 6 hats? I'm sorry, y'all. I have to say this. Michael, have you seen the 6 hats? Now we go to the 6 hats.
Hats, okay.
Michael, can we zoom in on the 6 hats? The 6 thinking hats?
I'm very new to this, so.
And so let's talk about action plans. The way that we approach our leaders when we talk about a grassroots approach, what makes us hippies so good at getting things done is being able to read people's energy. We understand how and what people want and what they're there for. Whether their intent is good or bad, we are good at understanding and taking an empathetic approach towards a social movement. So the connectivity is us, the people who want to have the conversation, the people who don't want to just talk about plans, but really want to make the action steps towards that. So that's being able to read people. So we talk about the 6 thinking hats. There are 6 thinking hats on here that describe the type of people are in the world. So I don't know if anybody has watched The Office. I don't know if anybody has watched Parks and Rec, but some of our most favorite shows in the media have shown us how people have had to coexist, although they don't see eye to eye socially and they don't communicate the same way. So being able to understand how people are and what they want from us as artists, as creatives, and how we can put together our little dots. I tell people all the time, it's, sometimes being a dot connector is not enough. You have to be a dot maker. The most powerful thing Chattanooga has shown me is how people from different organizations can run together to make something happen on a small scale at a 15-person dinner party before it ever hits anyone's board table.
One of the things that's kind of concerned me, and I don't know how it fits into placemaking, but like there's so many people who are looking for support right now, and some of it fits easily into like, oh, I could apply for unemployment and things like that. There's 5 million people that are independent, like artists and things like that, and there's programs there. But like we saw how millions of dollars went to a steakhouse, and businesses, and even in South Florida specifically, they said 1,000, there was a SBA loan, I think it was. It said 1,000 people got $50,000. If 1,000 organizations got $50,000 and 30,000 got nothing. And you need more voices in things like this, but more and more people are going to be trying to struggle just to survive. That's a concern. It's like the people who have good intentions, we need to be able to organize on the same level as the people that don't. So that creates, you need power, you need organization, you need people moving. And how do you get that when a lot of people are just like, how am I making my rent?
I'm really from South Florida too. And I was gonna add to that because just to add to what Michael was saying too, just from experience and from knowing like Nikki and Michael, Tara and some of the artists and creatives that we have down here in Fort Lauderdale and Broward County. I feel like you're already doing placemaking. It's just a matter of right now during this time is how do we think about 3-dimensional placemaking or like 4-dimensional placemaking, because we have a unique experience going on that we have to be virtual, and virtual is a space, it's a place, and so it's just kind of like translating those ideas and then not necessarily getting to the big like theory parts of things, because those are really not applicable to a lot of us in terms of the material realities that we live in, but rather, hey, we don't know what's coming after, so it is very important that we come together, connect to the people that we're already connected to down here in South Florida, and really try to galvanize some of those connections to be able to continue to make plays, whether it is physically both physically and virtually, so that we're continuing to combat the forces or systems that have gotten us to where we are today.
Something that concerns me is that when we do talk about these sort of different realms, the realm of online or virtual or whatever you want to call it, and physically face to face, there's so many possibilities of another sort of aspect of segregation, which is those who are easily able to get access to these virtual places and those who do not have access to these virtual places. So I think that's yet another way that we need to be thinking about, just be concerned about that, sort of taking for granted that that's accessible to everybody when it really is not. We need to have that awareness.
35 years in that effort, and we're only getting there now. And in Pontiac, we did like $5 million, and they spent it on themselves, those who got those dollars, as opposed to opening up the opportunities for young people to become the makers of their own future. So we're making progress.
Yeah, but
yeah. Well, right now that what you're speaking of, Helena, is those two things, access and broadband capacity, are the two integers that are being discussed nationally right now as the solution to a number of problems. Online learning is being driven by the pandemic. And isn't it the pandemic that made that necessary, when we all knew that the equity of having that kind of capacity was something that was necessary? But it took a pandemic to make that so, which is really an interesting contrast. We got 50 years in Earth Day, and the pandemic has caused more movement on things of importance. And this happened inside of 90 days.
I'm curious to know, when we all know that the world is going to be a little bit different for a while, maybe forever, maybe for our lifespan. That's still undetermined. But as we're coming out of this new phase that we're in and we're reestablishing our normal, I think it's important that we try not to let history repeat itself.
Yes.
That we take something into the future with us. So my question to you, I'd like to know, what's the one thing, because I work in government, what's the most important thing to you as we move forward as a society?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the key. He done stuff for me. I just made a phone call and he made it happen.
Set us to defending the demolition. Okay, they were going to demolish it. And of course, the question asked is, the Phoenix Center should be torn down. Their premise was, and this comes from the Oakland County executive, who kind of sucked the air out of this place for 2 decades. Mm-hmm. The thought was, because they bought lot 9, that big parking lot over there, which is about 5 acres in downtown Pontiac, that wouldn't it be interesting if we could make a case that we had to destroy the Phoenix Center because it was stopping people from finding Pontiac? I want you to think about that for a second. The city's been here for 150 years, but you couldn't find it because the Phoenix Center was built. Okay. Even though the loop,
you couldn't find this downtown.
That was their argument.
That was their argument for
But of course,
destroying it.
And I guess so, you know, our impetus was to go out and tell placemakers about the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, and raise the alarm. Like Paul Revere, the funds are coming, the funds are coming, you know, placemakers, wake up. We could impact probably a small percentage of these, but small things are so powerful that you don't need, 99% of it can go to waste, and that 1% will break the bank for good.
Right.
So we're trying to get all the
we're on the
little
lookout
shovels.
for the grifters, though, right?
We haven't seen many, but maybe at the conference
the
there are a
money
couple.
hasn't arrived yet.
The grifters? Yeah. Right
Believe
now,
me, they'll be there.
Well, right now
Actually,
what's
sure.
happening is, so if you have like an engineering firm, you're learning everything about this and you're calling your city clients and you're saying, hey, you know that project for a nuclear plant? Like, let's do it now. So salespeople are very oriented towards this.
So this is very similar to zone funding, opportunity zone funding, very similar. And almost all of the money went to big real estate developments, but it was intended to go to neighborhoods. Whoops.
And we wanted to do, I was in Pontiac already in the historical section, and I loved the community that was before William Durant opened GM. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
He started Oakland Motor Car, and this was the building.
Five floors.
Oh my God! This one's gonna be like the bohemian chic of places.
Could be done and should be done to make it more friendly for patrons and kids. For example, this structure here in the middle used to be a beautiful fountain that flowed, and we did maintenance to keep it going. As you see now, they have a weeping cherry here, but it would be absolutely wonderful to have it back. A few previous administrations thought that it was a eyesore because they said it would cause problems with vagrants hanging around the pond and such. But I beg to differ. If you go to any urban cities, major cities, they have different kind of water features and ponds that really bring the city to life and bring the parks to life and bring creativity, and it's a nice place for families to gather.
Construction starts in January. Yeah, so this will be our indoor transportation terminal. So this will be, there'll be a couple rows of seats in here where you can be watching monitors when you're by.
Well, pretty much what I do, I'm the executive director of the Citizen District Council, Community Citizen District Council for all of the districts. So what I do is I accumulate memberships of people because it is a self-governing.
I'm open to any ideas. Public social places, which is kind of what I want to make this. So it fits with what they need, and that. But there has to be a group that follows that document through to that point where after that document gets passed in City Hall and you get the favor of those council members, that you actually, now every developer has to have the community come in at the beginning. And
that image, okay? And there's KinderCare right behind us, right? So you got KinderCare there. You have the Y building here. Look at this building. This building is just awesome. And this is why I wanted you to see it. It's because it's the other piece of the equation. It's what it could be. It should be.
It looks brand new.
It is. It's only like, I believe it's 4 years old, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 5.
It was supposed to be in Pontiac.
Adjacent to us over here is Oakland University community.
Because it doesn't respond, then you said something else, I thought.
Yeah, the nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
It will fill.
It will, yeah.
It just won't be with community.
Oh, well, you have a green city, but
well,
No,
Yeah,
that could be one outcome, but then hyper gentrification would be the other.
There's definitely what's going to happen. Definitely.
Gentrification.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, they don't recognize that this isn't forever, but it is to them because that's how it's been forever.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing's forever.
So at some point, this space is gonna be like an uber rich nightclub.
Absolutely.
And there'll be some people here like drinking
Marijuana,
voluntary-
cola.
Do that, but the rest of it was just a total distraction. But anyway,
Where did you teach?
I taught studio art, drawing, design, sculpture at Oakland Community College for 48 years.
Wow.
I started the art department at the Auburn Hills campus in 1968 when I graduated from graduate school.
Our real passion is education.
Well, I get it. It's been my passion for most of my life. I mean, I could have retired, decades before I did, and I didn't retire because I was concerned about them. There was always this pressure hanging over us that they were going to dismantle the program. And, it used to be that Orchard Ridge was the center of the art department. But the program that I developed at Auburn Hills was a larger, more comprehensive program that met the needs of a greater variety of interests. And I knew myself that it was ultimately going to end up being the center of the art program, but no one would believe me. And now it is, because they closed down Highland Lakes, because they sold it, and the program in Royal Oak is minimal, and the geographics of Southfield and Farmington have become nominal, and most people, the greater amount of people live out in this area and north of us. So Auburn Hills has become really a magnet, for the population in Oakland County as far as the community college goes. So it's
You
the
were
program is
5 decades ahead of your time.
Well, I had a vision to build a program once I started, and I was very fortunate that I had a couple of deans who were very cooperative and understanding. And I got a big grant from the state of Michigan way back in 80 in the 80s to buy equipment, and I got a new building, as a result of lobbying the college and having some, very supportive deans. And so, it is what it is. And, a lot of people don't really know how it came into being, but, I'm sharing it with you just because we're talking about, education. So
yeah.
I've
So
always
are you tracking education right now?
Pardon?
Are you tracking education right now?
I only track education as it appears in different websites on my phone, like through the state of Michigan.
Did you see the Growing Michigan Together report?
Growing Michigan Together?
Yeah, the governor's report on education, where she
No, I haven't seen the report itself.
We're going to send you that report.
Do that.
So she outed education for all the reasons that you just cited, and we were part of a conversation with them and Brenda Carter to get some appropriations to address this problem. This problem that she pointed out is about, in her mind, the taxpayers who are leaving. The state of Michigan is 43rd in the country.
Oh, I know, it's very low.
And the country is 36th in the world.
Yeah, I know. I know reading and math.
So here's the
very
magic.
low.
Here's the magic, and you just described it, and you will know it as sure as we're talking here. The dollars that are spent on education in the state of Michigan is 56 billion every year.
Okay.
And the problem that we have is huge. But they will tell you, we don't have the money to fix it. What they mean is they don't know what to do to fix it.
Well, they don't have any vision or leadership.
Right. Right.
You said it all. You said you had a vision.
But you just described it. But you just described it. And here's the killer issue. And this is what we're on the verge of proving to them, because they don't understand. It isn't about the money, but of course it's about the money, but it isn't about the money in terms of instruction. The instruction model that we use is to put everybody in the automobile factory. Still, even though we don't have automobile factories today, it's still the model we're teaching to. And the real
the thing is that they're right now that they're still focused on that, but they're focused on it at a different level, but they're also very focused on the trades. And so those programs are not educational from a liberal arts instructional point of view.
Right.
People aren't being educated, they're being trained.
Right.
There's a difference.
Thank you.
Now we're going to get right to it, though. You just described it. And guess what? The thing that you described, the motivation element of learning, is free. It's called curiosity.
Right.
It is at the heart of everything creative and imaginative and the future tense. This is what we're attempting to prove to them. And we know that it works, and you certainly know that it works. You lived it, and you're still living it. And it's free. And it's free. Now, the problem they have is they had $650 million that they were going to take away from the pension fund, the underfunded pension fund. And they got a little bit of heat when the governor first made that available to everyone. They got a little bit of heat. And so they shifted from, we're not going to take the money from the pension fund. We're just not going to have you contribute to your pension fund to the tune of $650 million. You can use the money any way you wish. In other words, to continue the failure. So now we're at a point where we're going to bring creativity and imagination to bear on the problem and change the instructional model to reflect curiosity and imagination as opposed to a trained proposition for something that no longer exists.
Like a very important understanding, which I feel like our culture in the United States specifically is lost, is that there was this need for an understanding of emotional balance and how to confront and process feelings. We don't mourn in this culture, so even like when you were talking about catharsis, if you're not mourning, then you can't have a new starting point to do something new and better, which that digs into the ability to be creative. And I feel like as we're talking about like what has happened with the Tortured Poets Department with Taylor Swift, is that Taylor Swift is evoking and allowing for people to go through these and process emotions about very things that they're doing through the art and through the music. And the thing is that as a culture, we need to take lessons because people need to be moved to mourn in order to start anew. Otherwise, you're stuck.
Right.
Stuck.
So what is transference would be tragedy to thrive?
I'm trying to break it down because I'm thinking, okay, so transference is the tragedy to thrive. What I was thinking is that if you don't have the catharsis, what's happening is that there's a huge like shadow that occurs. Like there's a shadow developing that is being unexplored in our culture because people are not going through the catharsis. And usually, yes, it gets projected outwardly into other ways. And so if we understand the transference, Jung has this concept, which is, and so did Freud, that there's this vital aspect of therapeutic process that offers a window into like a person's unconscious. And the first thing with all this is we have to in depth psychology, there's a belief in the unconscious, that we have motives that come from another level of our psyche.
That culture just infuses every element of New Orleans culture, and it just creates this synergy and this bottom-up magic of that city. And I know you guys went there for placemaking US trip.
No, I had a very that just like you, the experience of New Orleans was a very transformative and a very big shift happened to me. And I think kind of looking too at this idea of the Greek tragedy is that Aristotle, in his like one of his seminal works, which is called the Poetics, he pretty much argued that like tragedy is there to arouse feelings of pity and fear in the audience and to lead to the purgation of these emotions through witnessing the struggle and downfall of like the tragic hero. That's where the audience starts to have this emotional release.
To mention like learning exchanges she's just so nervous of any kind of, it's becoming very protective because there's so much gentrification and going on there, and just they're trying to protect that culture, like the parades and the way that there's it just every other day there's some big parade going on, and that's fascinating to me, like how they regulate, how that remains so open that people can act on the city in that way creatively.
The beauty of the second line,
even though there's so much corruption too, but it's crazy. But sorry, go ahead. Yeah, the second line.
The second line, where people celebrate when someone dies with a second line, meaning that where they parade down the street. We just finished a grant today specifically, which I think I sent you kind of a copy of it, but it's for the EPA, and it's for a hyper local scale, organizing across the whole city in order to bring forth folks that are really interested in the environment to create a cohort that would be a part of an environmental justice committee that would start, targeting some of the areas in the greatest need.
Mm-hmm. Well, the work that we did there in Pontiac is now coming and drawing about a $250 million investment from the county.
Mm-hmm.
Because they bought the towers, and now they're in the process of destroying the Phoenix Center so they can rebuild another one so they can have the cars stream into downtown, which is exactly opposite of what should be happening.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a natural barrier there called the loop. And so you can control your downtown. So their solution to their problem, which is there's nobody downtown, is to open the town up and allow the cars to stream in. That's a 6x9 matrix, 6x9 block matrix in the loop. So it's like a Barcelona super block. And there's no cars in a Barcelona super block.
No.
But there's
and one of the things that was a mandatory of the Greek state, especially like in Athens, once a year, they would have the 2 tragedies and a comedy where they would select their best tragic, artists, poets, and they would perform. And for 3 days, everybody in the whole city would come to a place and watch these amazing plays play out that would show like the human experience or something that maybe they're dealing with in that city. And by seeing themselves outside of themselves going through this process, people often are able to suddenly understand where the tragedy in the situation was. So, for example, what Jim just described, like folks coming up with a tragic play around what's going to happen when they pull down. Yeah, exactly. Would be, if people all had to come and sit in the theater and watch this masterfully created play and then reflect on it in that way, then they can suddenly have a shift and a change in the understanding of how it's going to affect the community. So that would be a cathartic moment where people would reset for the whole year after these tragedy and comedies were played out. And it gave people a way to, step back and look at themselves. And most art, music, and theater, all of these different storytelling expressions also help people to go through this process of reflection, which ends up helping them to connect the dots so that the logic that comes out of whatever it is that they're seeing helps to guide people in a direction that's actually going to be not tragic, for example.
Right.